Hello, my name is Laura Baker, and I'm a training content developer for UCPath here at UCLA. And today we're going to be talking about the Summer Sessions Teaching Training Guide. So this document outlines the procedures for entering data in UCPath related to Summer Sessions teaching. This document does not address summer salary processing or summer ninth payments, but does talk about Summer Sessions teaching. You can find this document at the Central Resource Unit website. You can see here, it's attached at the bottom. And this document does get updated regularly. As you can see here, we have a couple of recent updates. So make sure you're coming to the website to get the most recent version of this document. So here is an example of the training guide. This document was created in collaboration with the Summer Sessions Planning Office, and we have links here that will take you directly to their website for additional information. The document is split up into 3 different areas, and the first talks about positions. So how to update existing positions or how to create a new position for summer sessions, how to set up your position funding, and then it goes into how to process the actual hire, and lastly, how to enter the additional pay transaction in UCPath. As I mentioned before, there are a lot of resources and links that are directly in this document that should help you with your entire summer session teaching transactions that will help you from start to finish. So with our training guide in hand, let's use a scenario. So the psychology department is receiving approval to hire Professor Pasquale for summer session teaching for session A and session C. So what should we do first? We need to find an existing position. Just to let you know, we are using the UCPath training environment. There are some limitations with this particular environment. As you can see, it doesn't look exactly the way that UCPath looks, the way that you use it in production, but the fields and the navigations that we're going to see here do mirror what you're going to see in production. So we want to see if there's an existing position, and the reason why is positions were made to be reused, and you likely have some positions that you used last year for summer sessions that you can just reuse this year. It will save you processing time, and if you have a position that you know you're not going to use, maybe you can just edit the one that you have to fit your needs rather than just starting completely over from scratch. So to do that, we're going to go to Position Control Request. From the main menu, we're going to go to UC Customizations, UC Extensions, and then Position Control Request. Since we're looking for a vacant position, I'm going to click this Update Vacant Position radio button and click Next. And now I'm going to enter my search fields. So we are at UCLA campus, so LACMP. This is for the psychology department. They are 087500. And I'm hiring a professor, so their job code is 001100, and I'm going to search. And it will bring up all of the vacant positions. So you can see I have 7 vacant positions that fit this criteria. And I want to see if I can use one that will fit the particular position attributes for summer sessions teaching. So let's take a look at this position here. And if you're unsure what the position should look like for summer sessions, we do have the job aid, and let's go to the updating positions. So this section shows you exactly the same thing that we just looked at right now. And we're also going to be looking at some key fields. So you'll want to make sure that the job code matches the position, so professor. And then the reports to, all that information here. The most important fields for summer sessions teaching is the salary admin plan, which should be BYA, which means by agreement, and then the salary grade should be left blank. And this is because the professor is not going to be paid from job data like a typical appointment. They're going to actually be paid from additional pay. So that is why this field needs to be BYA and the grade needs to be blank. For this particular position, their FLSA status is exempt. And now I want to check the FTE. So again, this person will not be paid from job data. So we're going to have the FTE be 0. If you are creating a new position or making any changes to an existing position, when you do go to save, you will receive an error message or a warning notifying you that you've left this as 0, and that's okay. You can just click OK through that message. You also don't necessarily need this to be budgeted because, again, it's a 0 FTE, but if that's checked or unchecked, it's not super important. And lastly, just again, this particular field is not going to be impactful for your concurrent hires, but if you are hiring someone who is new to the university, the HR worksite on the position is important for I-9 purposes. So if you're already here and you're already updating your position, this is a very fast, easy field to update. It's simply the number 4 dash your 4-digit department code. So in this case, it would be 0875. The training environment doesn't have this particular department available, so I'm not going to save this here, but if you have the time, go ahead and add that field. It will help you in the long run. And so it looks like all of the fields that I need here are correct. So we're going to use this position when we hire our professor, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. I just have a couple of last minute things to say about positions before we move on to the hiring portion. So as I mentioned before, it really is up to each department to determine how to best track your existing position numbers. If you don't already have a spreadsheet or some kind of tracking method, I would highly recommend that you do that, just so that way, again, you can really save yourself a lot of time, regardless of if it's a summer sessions teaching assignment or if you're hiring for any other position in your department. It really just saves you a lot of time if you can reuse existing positions. And lastly, for position funding, in the training guide here, we do have information related to setting up the position funding. If you are not the person who will be setting that up, make sure that you get together with your fund manager or whoever is in charge of entering funding for positions, and make sure that they do so before the first payroll is processed, just to avoid the department being charged to the suspense account. And now we're going to talk about hiring. All right, so now that we have our position number, what do we need to do? Well, we need to check to make sure that this particular person is either employed by the university, has previously been employed by the university, or has never been employed by the university. So the easiest way to do that is by checking the person organizational summary. So from the main menu, we're going to go to Workforce Administration, Personal Information, and then Person Organizational Summary. And I do know that this person is already employed with the university because I have their EMPL ID, but if I didn't have that, I could just search using their name. Particularly when you are searching, it might be a good idea to change the operator to contains, just on the off chance that maybe the name is a shortened version of the person's name. Sometimes the begins with can be a little tricky. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up this person's EMPL ID, again, just because I want to check their existing record. Okay, and also when you're doing that, make sure that if the view all is able to be hyperlinked, that you check it because there could be additional records here. But I can see that this person is an active employee who is in the psychology department as a professor, which is an exempt position. The only reason I'm mentioning this is because you'll just want to make sure that whatever position that you're hiring the person into, whether it's a professor or if it's a teaching assistant or a different position, that whatever their FLSA status is the same. So the position that you're hiring them into, that FLSA status should match whatever the person's existing record is. If it does not, we do have some tips in here for who you need to contact in the event that there is a conflict. And also this does talk you through the different types of templates that you should be using for your hire. So because this person is an active employee with the university, I'm going to use the concurrent hire academic template. So to do that, we're going to go to Workforce Administration, Smart HR Template, and Smart HR Transactions. Before we look at this too, just in case you go to Person Organizational Summary and you search for the person and maybe they don't show up, you also might want to check the search match page, and that navigation is also in the job aid. So just wanted to mention that really fast. So we're going to need our effective date and then selecting the template. So for the effective date, if you go to the Summer Sessions website, they have here for session A, B, C, and D, they have all of the dates that you're going to need. I definitely would recommend that you bookmark this page because it will really help you in your processing, both for the template as well as when you are processing the additional payment. So we are hiring this person for session A and session C. So obviously I need to use the date for session A. So right here we have begin date is 6/21. As far as the effective date here, this is for the payment. So for the hire, we're going to use 6/21 as the date. June 21st, 2021. And the template that we are going to use is the concurrent hire academic. And we'll click create transaction. Then we're going to enter the employee ID. The effective date carries over. And the reason code is going to be academic concurrent hire. And we'll click continue. It'll remind you that this person's already in the system, and we say that's okay, we know that. Now, for this particular field here, for concurrent hire templates, you typically don't want to touch anything on the personal data tab. If anything has changed for the employee, encourage them to update using the UCPath portal rather than through this template. So we're on the job data tab and we're going to enter our position number and click tab, and it will pull up information from the position. This message appears because we left that salary admin plan as BYA and the grade as blank. So it's just telling us that it couldn't determine the compensation information. So just click OK. And we're going to scroll down to these job compensation fields. Now the job aid does talk you through what you need to enter on these fields. Essentially, you're going to leave them blank. So what will happen is when you move on to the next tab, it'll appear red like this, and we'll see that in just a moment. But again, because the person will be paid off of additional pay and not through job data, that's why we're leaving this blank. So we're gonna leave all of this blank. For the compensation frequency, you can change it either to the UC9M. It does mention in the job aid, you know, which one you can either do M or UC9M, either or works. And as far as the expected job end date field goes, it's up to you if you want to use this field. I would recommend it because if you enter the date that you know that this job should terminate, and you check the end job automatically checkbox, that just means less work for you. You won't have to fill a termination template out. So if we look at our payroll dates here, I can see that again, we used 6/21 for the effective date of the template, and then session C will be over on September 10th. So just to be on the safe side, let's say I want to use September 30th as the expected job end date. Again, because they're being paid from additional pay, the date is not that important, but we put that here and end job automatically. And that just means for me, when October 1st hits, this job record is automatically going to terminate and I don't have to fill a termination template. So it's up to you whether or not you want to use this field, but I do recommend that you do that. The earns distribution field, you won't need to do anything. Again, remember I was telling you that this message would appear. That's okay, just click OK. And also I do want to mention, again, because we're in the training environment, you'll still see the additional pay tab here. It no longer exists in production, so just pretend it's not here. And you're going to enter your comments about your hire, go here, and then we are going to save and submit this template for approval. So just a little bit about timelines. So once you have submitted the template, it will go to your approver, and then from your approver, it will go to UC Path WFA production to be processed. So you'll just want to make sure that you're checking the payroll processing calendar and checking your deadlines and making sure that you are submitting everything by the particular deadlines that you need for making sure the person gets paid on time. And that is hiring. And now we're going to talk about the additional pay. So there are some system limitations with UC Path. As you may or may not be aware, you cannot see future dated hires in UC Path. And what that means for processing your additional pay is that you won't be able to do this in the system until we have reached the date of hire. So you submit your template. You can submit the template as far in advance as you'd like. It will be entered into the system, but you won't be able to go in and actually enter the pay information until the date of hire. So in our example, I won't be able to do that until June 21st, 2021 for this particular scenario. So you have two different options of submitting the payment. You can either use the additional pay through PayPath Actions, or you can use the self-service transaction links. They're just two different parts of the system. You may have access to one and not the other, so maybe that will determine the way that you decide where you want to go into the system. But I'll be demoing through PayPath. And one other thing to keep in mind with PayPath, again, you just want to check the payroll processing calendar, verify that you submit your transactions on time for the person to be paid at the appropriate time. One other thing about the dates on the payroll processing calendar is that it's the date for your approver to approve the transaction by, not the submission date. So just double check and make sure that you're submitting everything on time. And there's a link here for this year's session dates. Again, that's going to take you to this payroll date calendar. And that is the basic information. So let's get into the system. All right, so we're going to have to use our powers of imagination here and pretend that we've now reached June 21st, 2021. So I'm going to go into PayPath. So I'm going to go from the main menu to UC Customizations, UC Extensions, and then PayPath Actions. And I'm going to pull up my employee. And while I'm doing that, I do just want to mention, again, we're in the training environment, so that part of UC Path Center processing this person's record didn't happen. So right now I'm going to be setting up the payment on their EMPL record 0, but you'll just want to make sure that you're choosing the correct EMPL record when you're setting up this payment. And that just has to do with effort reporting and making sure that the payment goes on the correct position number. So I'm going to just skip over the position data and job data tabs and go to additional pay data. For the earn code, you can either just type it in, and if you don't know which one it is, it's right here in the job aid, and it has all the navigation information as well here for you. So, or you can click the little spyglass icon, and we're going to do ACS for additional compensation summer. And this person is eligible for retirement, which is why I chose that option. And then for the effective date, end date, that's where you want to refer to this table here. So in our scenario, the person will be teaching session A 6 weeks and session C 6 weeks. So I want to use the begin date and the effective date. So this one, I'm going to use effective date 7/1. So on my effective date, I'm going to change this to 7/1/2021. And the end date, because they are doing 2 sessions, I'm actually not going to use this end date here. I'm going to use this end date. So 8/31/2021. All right, and for the amount, you're going to want to get that from the summer sessions office and from their website. So here you can see they have a section for compensation limits, and they also have an Excel spreadsheet with a table of pay rates. I do have that example here. For this particular scenario, I'm going to use this amount here, but if you do have any questions on how to calculate the payment, you'll want to refer directly to the summer sessions office, and they will be able to assist you. They do have a contact page on their website, so it has their email as well as a phone number if you need to ask any questions related to that portion. So I'm going to use that amount of $12,758, and I think it was 50 cents. Yes, and 50 cents. All right. For the reason, we can just put new additional pay. I'm going to leave the goal amount blank. And then for these, if you're unsure, again, double check the job aid. It tells you what to do. So we're going to leave the goal amount field blank. We're going to make sure the prorate box is unchecked. And we're going to select the first checkbox for the pay period, which is already done. And then the other bit of information I just want to share with you has to do if you're doing 2 sessions. So what you want to do is, because this person's going to be paid for 2 sessions, you only want to put one amount here. You don't want to combine them together. And the reason why is because this is going to be split over 2 pay periods. So if I were to put the total amount for all 12 weeks here, it would pay them that total amount 2 times. So that would create an overpayment. So in this scenario, again, because we were doing 2 6-week sessions, that's why I chose the 6-week stipend amount. Again, if you have any questions about what amount to put here, you'll want to contact the summer sessions office. And then I'm going to add my comments here about the additional pay. And then I will click save and submit. And that's the additional pay section. And I'll have my transactional information here at the bottom for the approval. I do just want to mention that if you decide to do this through self-service transaction links, that the page will look exactly the same as this. So all that information is going to be the same. It's just the navigation to get there will be different. I do also want to remind you that PayPath does have blockout dates for pay confirms. So just make sure that, again, you're double checking that payroll processing calendar, you know about the dates, and you submit everything on time. And again, if you have any questions related to the compensation information, what dates to use, you'll want to run those by the Summer Sessions office. If you have questions related to UC Path and how to maybe select the right template, those kinds of questions can go to the Central Resource Unit or crew, and you can create a case on their website. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Make sure that you leave us any comments related to its production. If you like videos like this, let us know. If you have any feedback, we would love to hear from you as well. You can email us at crew-training@finance.ucla.edu. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you all have a great day.